Jay Scherr.
Jay Scherr.
Jay Scherr.
Jay Scherr,
business consultant.
Jay Scherr.
Jay Scherr Business Consulting.
Hey, everybody. I'm Jay Scherr with Jay Scherr Business Consulting. We help entrepreneurs, business owners, and leaders maximize their potential, build rock-solid foundations for their businesses, create more freedom in their lives. And you've joined Business Minds Coffee Chat. Eric Thomas said, if you are not where you want to be, do not quit. Instead, reinvent yourself and change your habits. Well, on today's episode, we talk about never giving up, doing the inner work, mindset, using your voice to build your brand, and more. My guest grew up in psych wards, rehabs, juveniles, and did over 5 years in prison. He defied the odds, found his purpose, earned his first million 6 years later, and continues to show that you can't beat an underdog who's all in. He's a husband and father to 4, a speaker, author, personal brand and business builder, and host of the top-rated podcast, Underdog Empowerment. He's been featured in Forbes, Entrepreneur, Disrupt, and other media outlets. Please welcome the man who's helping us defy the odds, build dominant brands, and stay on top of our game, Zach Babcock. Zach, it is great to see you, man. Thank you so much for being here.
Jay, thank you for having me. And dude, you are absolutely excellent with the intros, dude. Like that's some next level, like skill level right there, man. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. And I am super excited about our conversation today. We were able to have a conversation recently talking about your business, the things that you offer within that business from a service standpoint. And just listening to you, researching you, listening to your podcast, listening to some of the videos that you've created, it becomes apparent very quickly that you know your stuff, you connect with people very well, and you are just living life the way life is meant to be lived. And I love your story, and I want to dig into your story here a bit. Before we do, though, I wanted to ask you one question to get the podcast rolling. And that is for you to share with our audience what your favorite trait is about yourself.
Man, I easily it's the stubbornness of not giving up on the goal. Like it's the goal. I want to win really bad. And it's not, I haven't done a lot of inner work, and I'm still doing a lot of healing and whatnot, but I'm making a lot of progress. And it's not because I don't feel like I'm good enough anymore. Cause I truly do. I just love winning. I really love winning, the reason why it's because I want to be able to reach my maximum potential, like literally squeeze every single little ounce that life has to offer of it. I don't want to have any regrets at the end of my days. So that drive, that locking in trait would probably definitely be my favorite.
All right. Wonderful. Well, I have a feeling that trait in what you just described is going to become very apparent as this conversation continues to unfold. So for all of you that are watching and listening right now, pay attention to that. And I think you're going to find that there's a through line that you'll see throughout this conversation that resonates very well with that trait that you just described to us. So, I would love it if we could go back a bit. You have shared your story time and time again. I think it's important to give context around where you are today to be able to go back a bit and talk about where you came from, and really most importantly, some of the experiences that you had, Zach, that have shaped the person who you've become. So if you could share a bit of a thumbnail sketch for us, that would be outstanding.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say, I'll give you the cliff notes. We can always dive in deeper. For sure. Man, right now, I just made a post about this. Just the other day, I woke up Sunday and was just super grateful. And I was talking about how it's extremely hard nowadays not to wake up grateful. And I took a picture on our balcony outside our bed, and I got 3-acre spot in this pond and all that stuff. But I was saying, But man, this started in a prison cell before I had a beautiful home and property. Like this started, when I was actually in the hole with very little to human interaction at all. And right after I found out that my mom found her dead on the floor with a needle on her arm. And I was in a really, really, really dark place, dark time by myself. It was just me and God, literally. And I had to dig through some stuff and find, I found out a lot about myself and got close to myself and battled some demons. But I also found a peace of mind in there. And I became grateful for my relationship with God. I became grateful that I still had my mom in my life. I became grateful for the 3 meals that we had, the 3 showers that we got a week. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so, yeah, Cliff Notes version, man, grew up in psych wards, detention centers, juveniles, rehabs, crazy upbringing, very traumatic experiences that went into adulthood, to prison. And then I turned my life around at 26, man. I'm 34 now, and I just keep on chucking day by day, man.
There you go. Well, it's important that we pull on some of those threads there to try to understand more about the work that you've done and how you've been able to transform and turn your life around. But I wanted to ask you something. I read and also heard that you lost your father when you were 7 years old. So basically you grew up most of your life without a father figure. Do you recall, were there specific lessons that you learned? I know it's difficult when you're such a young person, but prior to your father's passing, were there things that you recall about your father, some lessons that you took watching him that stuck with you?
Yeah, man, and not all of them were great, man. I haven't really talked much about this yet, as I'm still doing a lot of work around this right now, but I'm open book, man. There was some great things about my dad. Like I truly felt loved by him. And but there was also times like man, dude, like it was joking and stuff, but like he had his girlfriend after him and my mom split, and my dad was like 52 at the time. And she's like 23, and like I don't remember exactly what was said or whatever, but like it was like a joke or something, saying like I could lay on her boobs as pillows or something because I couldn't find a pillow or something. But like that ain't, I was 7 years old at the time, you know what I'm saying? And that kind of like, in a way, I don't know, just like kind of shaped kind of like my thought about women in a sense, you know what I'm saying? Until I really started digging deep and started working on that. So yeah, there's some crazy stuff, but I will say this. So I do remember right before my dad died, my mom and dad, they split. And then right after that, we moved from a nice neighborhood to not so nice Ferguson, Missouri or whatnot. And I immediately started getting picked on being the new kid there. And I remember like my dad, like trying to show me how to defend myself or whatever. Cause I was going to him, like trying to figure out how to do that. And then, and then he died shortly after that. So didn't have much, man. I do remember bits and pieces though. It was so young though.
So your mother has played a pivotal role in your life. You've spoken about your mother. You, in the book that you wrote several years back, you acknowledge your mother at the beginning of that book. What has your mother meant to you? What were some of the foundational aspects that your mother brought into your life that, as you think about it and as you look back today, some of the things that you carry forward in the way that you show up for your family?
Yeah, man. I mean, that woman, she's had the biggest impact on me more than any other human on earth. Obviously, I think a lot of people could say that about their mom. Not everybody, but a lot of people could feel that way. Yeah, and again, everybody, goes, nobody's perfect, right? There were some things that my mom did out of her best intentions. Like she wanted what was best for me, but she was the one that put me in the court system before the court, or put me in a rehab and then a psych ward before the court system ever got their hands on me. When I was 9 years old, she thought she was doing, she couldn't handle me, and she thought she was doing what was best for me. But obviously that wasn't. That made me feel like I was abandoned, thrown to the wolves, fearing for my life, stuff like that. Not good enough to be your own son, inadequate, all these things. But also though, she also got me out of there a few days after she'd seen how crazy it was. And every time I got locked up or all the trouble I went through and all whatnot, she was always there for me, you know, unconditionally there, showing up to visit me and stuff like that, always telling me that you could do anything you put your mind to. And the way she led, like I got her plaque on the wall. She before she died, my sister died from that heroin overdose. Well, my mom ended up creating the Ferguson Youth Initiative, which is still going on today, and dedicated the last 5 years of her life to that and became citizen of the year in Ferguson or whatnot, just like so selfless, you know what I'm saying, and truly cared about other people, doing the right thing, leading with truth. That's what she instilled in me, and what I take with me for sure.
Yeah, amazing. What an incredible example. And, you know, as you described, I'm sure we can all relate to different stories we have about our upbringing. We all have different challenges. We all have different people that we can point to that may have given us some great life examples, some lessons learned, some tough love as well, right?
Yeah.
But it's what we do with it that makes all the difference in the world. It's how do we
Amen.
take those lessons, how do we take those relationships and apply those to who we are so we can show up as our best selves and contribute some way, some shape or form to society at large. So what is something that you had believed about yourself early on that you discovered later wasn't true at all?
That I wasn't good enough, and that I couldn't focus, and couldn't concentrate, and had ADD, ADHD, ABCD, EFG, you know, all that stuff that they prescribed to me in school and all that stuff. And I don't have an attention problem. Like it was boring stuff, and I just didn't care about it. You know what I'm saying? But if I care about it, like I could focus and lock in like no other. So that'd definitely be it.
Interesting. So, speaking of beliefs and those things that at one point we believed about ourselves that we discovered really weren't the case. And, you know, as you know, we have a tendency to tell ourselves all kinds of stories. Many of them are
Mm-hmm.
negative, right? So much of that holds us back from really becoming all that we can be. When did you first discover for yourself that some of those beliefs that you held, what we'll call limiting beliefs, that's all they were, that they were just limiting beliefs that either weren't true, that maybe someone else had given you and you just started to believe those things yourself? But when did you make that discovery that you are in control and can believe whatever you want about yourself?
The moment that I woke up in that jail cell, learning that I was going to miss out on my twin son's birth because I was going back to prison, that's the moment that I turned my life around, and that's immediately like shifted my entire identity and my whole entire paradigm on life. Because that pain, like I was like, I'm not gonna not be there for my kids. Like that's all I wanted. I didn't have a dad growing up, and I wanted to be a dad for my kids and not, you know, be able to break that whole cycle. And not being there like hurt so bad. And I was like, dude, I don't care. Like, this is who I am. I don't care what it takes. I'm getting out and I'm gonna be a good dad. And that's what I did, man. And that's where it started. And then since then, like, you know, I've been able to break more limiting beliefs, and we all still have them. Like I was able to quit smoking after over 20 years because it started when I was 9 years old. And it all started with the identity thing and that story you tell yourself of, oh, I'm trying to quit. I'm a smoker. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, it's all about it truly is that belief, like you said. So those things, I got that's a whole nother podcast, bro. That's stuff I get super geeked out about, but I love designing your life by designing your identity and become, you know, tearing down the old you and building up the new you. Obviously nobody's perfect at that, but it's stuff that I do love talking about.
As do I. And I want to stay on that for a moment. And we don't have to go too deep here, but I want to give our audience something tactical that they can use here because I know, I mean, I've done and continue to do a lot of deep work on myself, looking at my own identity, changing the way that I see myself and the way that I show up. And it's required a lot of work. And I know you've been through a tremendous amount and continue to as well, which we're going to explore that. But speaking of self-identity, if you look back at the steps that you've taken specifically. Can you give maybe an example or walk our audience through a couple of ways that you've been able to reframe and change your identity, the way that you had seen yourself to the way that you see yourself today?
Yeah, man. There's a whole bunch. Let's just bust out a few of them. Ways that like I create like new identities and whatnot. It starts with obviously the belief and the goal, the vision of who you want to become, right? And the belief that that's who you are. But you need to do that by reinforcing that identity day in, day out through your daily habits. And so, like ways that I do to hack that, and this is all stuff, you know, most of this, a lot of this stuff comes out of the book Atomic Habits. If you guys haven't checked that book out, excellent book for this stuff. Stuff that I do, I read that book once a year, by the way.
Excellent.
This is my third or fourth year on it. But like checking, like having, like you can get a free app called Habit and put all that, customize all that habits you want on there that you're trying, because these are going to reinforce that identity. Put them on there, and then every day you do them, and every time you check them off, it sends a dopamine shot through your body first and foremost. So it's like the achievement of the goal. You feel good about that, but it's a reinforcement by checking that thing off. And so like that's one way. Then like if there's something hard for you to try and do, like say you're trying to become this person that super healthy, like all natural, whatever, and have like good, healthy looking skin. That's not the only reason why I want to be healthy, but I'm using this as an example. It was hard for me to start skincare because I never used skincare before in my life. I'm a dude, right? Well, for me in order to start doing it, I had to start habit stacking. Meaning like one habit that I already do triggers that habit. So what I said, every time that I brush my teeth in the morning, that's going to trigger the next habit, which is the skincare. And so I started doing that. And now every morning when I do my brush my teeth, I just do the skincare because it's natural at this point. It's built in, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's another way of doing it. There's a whole lot of little hacks like that, but the little things, it's those small little wins. And even if you're just getting started and it feels like, oh man, that's so much to do, I can't become this person all in one day. Start small, start with just one habit, even if it's just going to the gym and showing up for 5 minutes and going in there and just showing up and doing it. Obviously, like he even talks about in the book, obviously it's not gonna like change your physiology that much. You got to do this over and over and over consistently again. But just the sheer act of showing up, going there, that's setting in motion that habit and that identity of who you are. You show up because you're a healthy person, you're taking care of your fitness or whatnot. So those are just some ways that I do about it. And I do a lot of introspection through journaling and stuff and a whole bunch of other stuff. But yeah, obviously you could tell I like this kind of stuff.
No doubt. Well, I thank you for sharing some of those tactical things that you do that have worked and obviously that are proven, right? These are things that we can all do. And I think to accentuate a point that you just made about starting small, because if we think about it, the small things become the big things. So whenever you can look at something that you can do, break it down to its smallest component, remove as much friction from that thing as you can. So as an example, you talk about just going to the gym, right? Just showing up. Start there. I can tell you that I'll back up for just a moment. I start by just putting my clothes out the night before. I have my clothes sitting on my dresser. That's it. That's the first step, right? So it is the smallest thing that I can do. But once I start to build that habit and it becomes part of my identity, the way that I've shifted my identity, it's really remarkable the transformations that begin to happen. But to your point, start small but do something, right? Do one thing that you can do to create some change today.
And that all compounds. Oh, I was going to say, so real quick for you to the next question. That all compounds, like you said, start small. And just wanted to say, when you said you prepare your clothes for the next day, like literally, I know everybody can't see, but you can. That's in my app that I'm talking about, and it says right there, prepare clothes for next day. That's one of my things that I do every single day. I'm ready to. I don't have to think about. I wake up. Everybody talks about that morning routine and how important it is, and rightfully so. I got an awesome morning routine, but not everybody talks about how important a bedtime routine is, and that's part of it. Preparing your clothes, preparing everything for the next day, winding yourself down, to prepare yourself to get excellent, phenomenal sleep, which is one of your best friends. You know, all that stuff. I could tell me and you are closely aligned on a lot of that, Jay.
No doubt about it. So I want to ask you one other question about identity shifting. Is visualization a part of that for you? So as you look at the person who you want to become and you're changing habits, you're stacking habits, did you have a clear image of who you wanted to be, who you looked like, how you felt, how you breathed, how your physiology, all of that?
Yes, sir. I do visualization all the time, and I do negative and positive visualization. And it's like the negative is what really moves the needle for me. Like for me, it's how I've stopped a lot of things like smoking, eating terrible, not taking my health seriously, all that stuff. It's because I visualize myself. If I keep doing these things, what am I going to feel like when I'm getting ready to die? You know what I'm saying? Am I going to have regrets for not doing it? Am I going to be dying from a low quality lifestyle, from like a terminal illness or whatnot? And so like, yeah, the visualization for me is like a big, you start, then you shift to what, from the negative to what is it that you do want? And you ask yourself these questions and you journal about it. And maybe it all comes to you right then and there, or maybe it takes a couple of weeks, or maybe it's just a constant evolution that just keeps on evolving as you continue to evolve. But constantly checking with yourself and having those checkpoints are huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to speak directly to our audience here for just a moment to let all of you know, and we talk about this on this podcast, but no matter where you started, no matter what challenges you face, no matter how you grew up, you have the ability to change at any time. I mean, the reality is we're always in a state of change anyway, but there are things that you can do specifically to influence that change and decide in a moment who you want to become and do the work to get there. You're hearing a story here today. Zach is already sharing some things that he's done. You've heard a bit about his backstory. What you haven't heard yet is what he has done once he made the decision, right? Gets out of prison. And we're going to step that process forward here because I want everyone to be able to listen and learn and then take action, because we can talk about this all day long. We can read the books, we can watch the videos, we can listen to the podcasts, and that's all important. That's great to do. Education is critically important. What are you going to do about it? It's the
Yeah.
action step that we attach to everything else that makes all the difference in the world. And you're going to hear here in just a moment what action looks like. So, Zach, anything you want to add to that point before we move forward?
Oh man, I just thank you for saying that, man. Don't be a self-help junkie, man. Yeah, consume the stuff that's going to help you. Go get into the masterminds, get around the networking events, around the people and whatnot. But take action. Action trumps all of that. Like decide what it is you're going to do, and then go do it, and then keep on doing it, even if you lose, even if you just keep on going. Like I see a lot of people that just go to the events all the time and all that stuff, and they're in the same spot every year. And it's like, until something changed, until you change something, you're going to get the same result. But yeah, man, thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. So let's pull the timeline forward. So now I would love it if you would share with us how you came up with the idea for your current business. You've clearly found your purpose, your calling in life. And I also believe, Zach, that that is something that continues to evolve, but
Yeah.
you've tapped into something here. And that's very clear. It's clear in the way that you create your content, the messaging that you put out there, the way that you're helping others transform their lives, create incredible businesses and branding, etc. So speak to our audience about where that came from and how you started, and then we'll talk about some specifics around lessons learned and maybe some tactical and strategical things that we can share with everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go over brush over quickly. And if you want to go deeper on any of that, we definitely did got out of prison, right? Did network marketing for 2 years. That wasn't my true calling. Obviously, left network marketing after 2 years to start on what I'm doing now. Well, the next year and a half struggled. No breakthroughs, no nothing. It was just like it was rough. Launched the podcast Underdog Empowerment in April of 2018. It blew up right out the gate. Started getting massive traction. Was able to leverage that and get high level guests on the show, which also helped me grow quicker. But it still wasn't making the money yet. I was making about $200 to $800 a month. That's not a lot to write home about. Plus, whenever you've got a family, you got when you have 4 children and a wife and stuff, that's not a lot to take care. It doesn't get you through much. So, long story short, the about a year after I launched my podcast, I went and spoke at this event in San Diego, a small mastermind. Gave my speech one day. He asked me to come up the next day. It was about 20 people at the mastermind, and asked if I can come up and talk about podcasts the next day. I did that, talked about it. Everybody's eyes were lighting up. All everybody's asking me questions. I'm like, man, I might have something here, And so I went and put together an offer to help people with podcasts because I didn't know that I never wanted to be the podcast guy and think like that I was doing nothing crazy. But I put together that offer and put it out in March 2019. Did 11K that with that offer in that month. And at the time, I had never made more than $2,000 a month in my life. And so I was like, holy shit, this is real. Like I couldn't believe it, man. So it was awesome, though. And we just drove that home and have grown it since. Dang, that's been 4 years now. It's crazy.
Incredible. Well, so going back to 2018, how did you land on podcasting to begin with? Why podcasting? Where did that idea come from?
Jay, I didn't even want to do podcasting. It's crazy. I was on YouTube for 2 years prior to that, putting out 3 videos a week consistently. At the time, that was when I didn't have a team. It was just me. I didn't have money. And so I'm doing all the editing, all the stuff to run. Like there's a lot that goes into running a YouTube channel more so than what it does with podcasts because you're dealing with editing video, not just audio. But anyways, I was doing that. And I preferred video more. I was like, man, I don't want to just talk. That's boring or whatever. Well, anyways, it was 2017 at the end of it, and I was studying it. I launched my podcast beginning of 2018, but I'm studying Russell Brunson's at this time. I don't even do the click funnel stuff no more. It's a whole nother story. If you know. But what do you call it? I was going through the Funnel Hacks Masterclass, and Russell Brunson gave the story of one of his past clients that was having a really hard time with getting opportunities and getting out there. And that's exactly what I was dealing with. I felt like everybody that I tried to collaborate with at the time was not taking me seriously. I was just an ex-convict turned entrepreneur afterthought that nobody wanted to give the time of day to. And, the opportunities were scarce and not making money, all these things. And so that story resonated with me. And he said that he went and started a podcast. And as soon as he started this podcast, he had this show and everybody wanted to be on the show, and it just opened up everything. And before you knew it, he started crushing it. I was like, all right, man, we'll just see what sticks. And so I figured out how to launch a podcast, and it stuck. It kind of played out exactly how this story that Russell Brunson was talking about with his client or whatnot.
Well, so the lessons that you've learned from the time that you first started podcasting, some of the things that you share with your clients today, give us if you were to distill some of the key lessons that you've learned, some of the things that those who may be interested in launching a podcast, who today maybe don't know anything at all about podcasting, or that don't understand why podcasting can be beneficial to their business, what would you say to them? So what are some of the key lessons that you've learned? Why should a business podcast or look into getting into podcasting, and how does it help a business build a dominant brand?
In so many ways, man. My favorite way is just the network that you get to build with it. For me, like I mentioned, I went in 1 week. So before the podcast, this went on for well over a year. It was tough sledding trying to collaborate with anyone, any entrepreneur. Nobody was taking me seriously. Launched a podcast. Following week, had Billie Jean's marketing on the show, and been having huge names after that since then. So it immediately put me in a higher level stratosphere of networking and got me into those opportunities right out the gate. I was able to get the podcast ranked on day 3, which I then hit up Billy James like, yo, Billy, man, I just launched a podcast. It's blowing up. It's ranked. Got to get you on the show. You're a perfect fit, man. We got to make it happen. And he gave me your email and we made it happen. So I was able to leverage that. You know what I'm saying? So now I got these brand associations, which makes me more influential to my market because I'm hanging out with people that they already know, like, and trust and want to hang out with. You know what I mean? Anybody, for one, can purchase a Forbes article, Forbes featured article. Money will buy that. But not everybody can get 30 minutes of some very influential person's time. They may be able to, but not everyone can because it's finite. And so, yeah, that right there, just the network. But I just started networking with people and talking to people and people that were doing stuff maybe a little bit, few steps ahead of me or quite a few steps ahead of me. And by doing that, I'm getting around and getting exposed to more stuff. I'm getting free mentorship from people because I get to ask them whatever I want on my podcast. Then on top of that, I'm going on other people's podcasts too. I'm doing podcast interview swaps. So as I'm doing that, I'm getting in front of other people's audiences. And I specifically target podcasts that have audiences that would resonate with me. You know what I mean? And so anybody can quickly, you see how that works. Like anybody could quickly build a brand if that's what you're trying to do, which by building a brand is only going to impact your business positively with revenue, more attention on your business. Even if it's bad attention, it's still going to increase. It's like they say, all publicity is good publicity. I personally don't want bad publicity. You get what I'm trying to say is more attention is going to create more revenue for your business.
So for our audience, which is going to be a tremendous mix of different types of businesses. We have small business leaders, we have entrepreneurs, we have mid-sized businesses that listen in, and just others who may not own a business, but they're just interested in growth. They're interested in personal development and figuring out how to become the best person that they can be. So based on what you know today, would you say that podcasting is for any business? Is there anyone that shouldn't do podcasting that you've come across? And if so, who would that individual be? Maybe a business sector? Can it be beneficial for everyone?
Yeah, I truly do believe it can. However, the person it is not for is for anyone that has trouble with being consistent. Like I will say this, man, if you are not going to right out the gate say, hey, I don't care what happens with this show, I'm going to produce an episode at the same time on the same day every single week for at least 1 year straight before I even think about quitting, that's not for you. Don't do it. It's pointless. It's not even worth your time. You're going to waste time because that's the number one thing is you got to be consistent with it and you got to make that commitment. And a lot of people never get started because of that commitment. And also, more importantly, they never get started because they're too afraid to, and they're afraid of putting themselves out there and how it's going to be perceived by other people. And that's a real fear. You know, a lot of us deal with that. Everybody does. People that say they don't, they still do. Everybody cares about what other people think about them because it's a natural human behavior to care about that in the tribe. So it's okay. And we got, ways, you can work through it. And it's a lot of limiting belief stuff like we were talking about earlier. But man, you have to be able to commit to doing it straight up.
I would 100% agree with you on the consistency part. It's amazing how human nature works, that we get used to certain patterns. So for you being consistent about putting out a podcast, same day, same time, every week, as me being a listener, being someone who is interested in tuning into your show, there's an expectation that comes with that, right? Yeah. So once I'm hooked and I'm listening, I know that, okay, well, the next episode is going to come out on this day at this time. So I can subscribe to that and I count on that. So you create a pattern for me that I'm following. But the moment that you don't release the episode 1 week, maybe 2 weeks,
you lose trust.
Right. We've lost trust. So as you said, be prepared in advance to understand that discipline matters, consistency matters. The other aspects of it have a tendency to fall into place, but talking about the fear of putting yourself out there, the fear of maybe flipping on a mic. I don't like the sound of my voice, as an example. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to carry on a conversation. I mean, all these different stories that we can tell ourselves. Do you help clients of yours today deal with those aspects, as well as creating the podcast, producing, releasing, marketing, all of those areas? Do you help them work through those areas of fear so they can build an amazing show?
Yeah, absolutely. And a thing we like to do is a little challenge is, hey, go get your podcast set up on Anchor. Don't let me backtrack. When you set up your podcast for real, set it up on something better than Anchor. But anyways, we use Anchor just to get, if that's something that somebody's, it's an issue. It's like a real deal, like a limiting belief that they haven't been able to remove yet, or they haven't overcome yet. Then it's, hey, this challenge, go set it up on Anchor. It's a free thing. You can quickly set it up and just record a 5-second, 15-second podcast episode and hit publish. Nobody in the world is going to know about this podcast that you created on Anchor. You know what I'm saying? Nobody's going to hear about it. You don't have to tell anybody about it. Just do it. Just do it that one time. Because guess what? Once you do it and you publish that episode, like, oh, wow, I did it. It wasn't that frightening. It wasn't that bad. I get it, man. Talking into a camera or a microphone for the first time is weird. It's weird. It's so weird. It's like, I'm used to talking to a human, not just like this microphone. What am I going to say? How am I going to have a conversation with a microphone? And so there's a lot of stuff, but we coach people up on a lot of other stuff too. Is like for like with that, as I always say, imagine like you're talking to a specific person and you're getting this message home, and we show them how to prepare an episode outline, whatnot, with bullet points or whatever. But yeah, man, those are all just limiting beliefs, and just getting those short, small wins, just a small win. It creates a new belief, a new identity, and that's how we break through it.
Yeah, I love that example, starting very small on Anchor, just creating 5 seconds, 10, 15 seconds, whatever it takes, just to be able to know that you can do it, that you did do it, right? And now you can work on, how do I get better than I was yesterday, as opposed to comparing myself to some big name out there that's been doing it for years and that has hundreds and hundreds of episodes underneath of them. Just look at what you did yesterday, and what is one thing that I can do that I can improve upon so I can continually move that ball forward. And it goes to the example of just putting the clothes on the dresser, right?
Yeah.
If that's the starting point. The starting point on the podcasting side is hit record, publish it on Anchor, and keep it small, and then build from there. So you have built an entire business around podcasting and helping other businesses build a dominant brand. Share with us first, if you will, Zach, as you listen to other podcasts and as you have built relationships with other podcasters, what would you say are some of the characteristics of a very well done podcast? So kind of look holistically. What are the things that you look for that resonate with you, and share some of that with our audience?
Yeah, man. For me, it's just one thing. It's the foundation of the podcast. It's what everything is built on. So like, I got a whole, we call it the powertrain system. It's a whole system. There's 5 pillars in it to build a dominant brand for podcasts. And 4 of those 5 pillars are all like growth pillars. All right. Think of those, getting your podcast ranked, growing your audience, growing your influence, monetizing the show. Those are all like growth pillars, but they're all built on that foundational pillar, your content. And so what we got to do there is we got to just really nail it with what your marketing message is. I have a video on YouTube you can watch. It's free. It's my welcome video on YouTube. It's the 4 things to a successful podcast, and that's nailing in your marketing message. Who is your podcast for? What is your podcast about? Where's your podcast taking them? Why should they listen to you? Very simple. Give a 1-sentence answer to each one of those. It doesn't have to be perfect. This thing is going to just like we were talking about with your purpose, or whatever. This thing is going to consistently evolve and grow as you do. But just done is better than perfect. Just get 4 sentences to each one of those and start there.
Absolutely. So you've done a remarkable job with helping others get ranked and to build incredible podcasts. Obviously, you've done that for yourself. So you've put the reps in, you've demonstrated that you can do this, that you have done this, and that you continue to do this, right? So you've built trust, you've built credibility in this space. So today, as you look back over all the different things that you've done, the life experiences that you've had, what are some of maybe one or two big questions that you're asking yourself today about who I am and where I'm going?
Yeah, I mean, I ask myself, and I'm definitely not perfect. Nobody is. I have bad days just like everybody else does, but I like to ask myself, like, who am I? Am I acting in alignment with who I am? And what am I doing? And what am is what I'm I don't know why I'm having a hard time saying that there. It's like a tongue twister. Is what I'm doing today in alignment with who I want to become and how I want my life legacy to be? I don't know why that was difficult to there. Yeah, I ask myself questions like that all the time, man. And dude, I'm really blessed now. Obviously I worked real hard for it, but I also do believe, God had his hand in it as well. But I got this 3-acre home now. Like I bought it for the property. It's a beautiful home. I bought it for the pond in the back. Like I go out there every day. I take breaks. Like right after we get done with this podcast, I'm gonna go outside and walk, even though it's a little chilly out there. I'm gonna go outside and walk in nature around the pond and ground myself and probably ask questions like that keep me centered and keep me focused on the big goal here.
Wonderful. I love that. So today, what are the things that you say no to and that you say yes to? And I'm talking about boundaries here. So what are some of those things that you've made a decision on that are the non-negotiables? I'll say yes to these things, but I am absolutely saying no to these things.
Yeah, big one. I started doing this in 2021, and I'm so grateful I did it at an age where my kids are still young. But 4 p.m. hits. I don't care what kind of fires are going on in the work or who needs help. I don't care. If you're not gonna die and you don't need me right this second, that can wait till tomorrow because I'm switching from work time to dad mode and family time. And that's huge, because I'm able to just unplug. And I do that by setting my goals for the next day to wrap. That's my cue to wrap up the day, set the goals for the next day. Like we talk about, prepare, design the day for the next day. Boom, I'm done. I set my work stuff done. I exit out of this office and I'm in dad mode. And it helps by having the discipline, the daily routine or whatnot to switch into that or whatnot in the habit that I built. But yeah, that's definitely a boundary that I put in place.
Yeah, wonderful. So for all of you as well that are watching and listening right now, being intentional about setting boundaries can make a tremendous difference in your personal and your professional life. And I can share that that was an area that I did not understand for so many years and just said yes to everything and had no bandwidth left to be able to really do the things that were most meaningful to me, that was going to be of benefit to my family, that was going to allow me to grow personally. And once you discover the power of saying no, so you can say yes to the things that truly matter, and Zach, to your point, that align with who you are, that align with your values, that align with your mission and your purpose, life begins to look much different. So thank you for sharing that. What does freedom mean to you, Zach?
That's a great question, man. Freedom. See, man, because I don't believe if you like I love freedom and I love creating as much of it as I can in my life. But I don't believe that any of us are truly free. If you think about it, we pay taxes and we do stuff. I think freedom is when you get to a point where you truly don't care what other people are thinking about you and judging you and perceiving you. Like you just do stuff because it makes you happy. You just do stuff because that's your truth. All right. And you're not worried about who it could offend, right? That when you get to that point, that's true freedom. I'm not there. I've made a lot of progress in that realm, but I'm not 100% there yet. I still care about what other people think about me. Everybody does. It's like a human natural, behavior thing. But that's what I think true freedom is.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. So Zach, as we begin to wrap up our conversation, which I'm going to share with you right now that I'm asking you to come back for round 2. We'll schedule that because there's some other areas that I believe would be very meaningful to our audience. So if you're committed to doing that, we'll go ahead and schedule that here in the near future.
Let's go. Absolutely, man.
Absolutely. So before I ask my final question, and by the way, we have links to all your social handles, to your website, etc. We'll certainly put that in the show notes. But please leave a challenge for our audience. What should our audience do? What would you challenge them to do?
The next time that you get into a really crappy situation where you're freaking out, you're panicking, you're stressed out, you don't know what to do, it feels like the world's crumbling, it feels like fires are just sprouting out everywhere. The next time that happens, I challenge you to pause, to breathe, and then ask yourself this question: what's the very next best thing that I can do that's going to move me one step closer to my goal? Or what's the very next thing that I can do to make this situation right? And then take action on that and focus only on what you can control. And if you do that and you do that long enough and you stick with it, you're going to be all right.
That is so good. Did you hear what Zach said? I hope you did, because this is one you definitely want to take advantage of. So Zach, I have one final question for you before we wrap up. And this is it. So what is the most difficult decision that you've had to make in the pursuit of who you've become?
That's a good, man. There's been a lot of difficult decisions. What's the most difficult decision I've had to make in the pursuit of who I've become? Probably going and facing the most painful, hardest work that anybody can do, and that's the deep personal inner work. Making that decision to face it head on. That's tough. That's your ego is fighting that with its life, like trying to suppress all those traumatic, crazy memories below the surface so you don't even have to think about it or feel it. And it wants absolutely no part of that. And so that's really tough. And you can easily make many excuses not to do it. And it takes a lot of courage and a lot of strength to go on and do that. And so, yeah, that's been the toughest.
So well said. Not easy to hold a mirror up, is it? Thank you so very much, Zach. I greatly appreciate you joining me today on Business Minds Coffee Chat. Our time has gone by quickly, but I want you to know how much I appreciate you, how grateful I am for you sharing your insights, sharing your wisdom, your story, and just telling it like it is. You're as real as they come, and your story continues to evolve. I know there's plenty of chapters in front of you, and I'm so appreciative of you being here.
Jay, dude, thank you so much for having me on your show, man. I had an excellent time today. You're an excellent host. It was an excellent conversation, man, and I'm grateful for today. Thank you.
Absolutely. And for all of you, thank you so very much for watching and listening. How about this one? What a great episode. Would you do us a favor? Would you rate this episode, subscribe, and leave us a comment? We would love it if you would share one or two key takeaways that resonated most with you with this conversation with Zach. And to enjoy more episodes, all you need to do is visit jscherbusinessconsulting.com and click on the podcast button. And until next time, keep learning and growing. Check out the Underdog Empowerment podcast with Zachary Babcock. And we'll see you on the next Business Minds Coffee Chat. Take care, everybody.
Jay Scherr.
Jay Scherr.
Business Consultant.
Jay Scherr
Business Consulting.